The Houston Texans are coming off of back-to-back 10-7 seasons where the first year in 2023, CJ Stroud looked like a franchise quarterback and was the next greatest thing behind an elite defense, D'Amico Ryans at head coach, and a strong group of playmakers headlined with Nico Collins at receiver. In 2024, they added Stefon Diggs to that group. They added Joe Mixon, and they already still had an elite defense paired with D'Amico Ryans, but the offensive line held this team back last year. The injuries at the receiver position between Tank Dell and Diggs absolutely crushed their season, and they finished 10-7. Stroud took a step back, and it felt like an underwhelming year despite having one of the best defenses in the NFL. Heading into 2025, they returned that elite defense, add a few pieces in here and there. And then on the offensive side of the ball, they've completely reshifted the offensive line. They added new playmakers at receiver, and they have a running back room that has a few question marks right now. So let's get right into this video and see if the Houston Texans are going to take a step forward or be in the same spot they were the past few years. What's going on, everybody? I am Ryan Linkletter, and today I'm breaking down the Houston Texans and what we're looking like heading into the 2025 season. We all know that the AFC itself is an absolute gauntlet on a yearly basis. We know the Chiefs' dominance as of late. The Buffalo Bills have been knocking on the door for quite some time. The Ravens have put together some of the most historic regular season finishes of all time. I'm trying not to laugh about their postseason failures, but elite team. The Bengals have had some success. The Texans have their work cut out for them to succeed in the AFC. Luckily for them, their division's pretty weak. The Colts, the Jaguars, and the Titans all look like they're in tough spots, whether it's their quarterback situation, a brutal defense, or they just do not have any sort of things going right for them right now, and that was the Titans situation last year. But the Texans have an easy division, and that will put them in a great spot to be successful again in 2025. But at this point, with the franchise quarterback like CJ Stroud, is that enough to be content with as a Houston Texans fan? I'm not sure. So let's break down if this team can get to a Super Bowl with this current roster. Now, the offseason, we know that they had a lot of work to do. The offensive line had a lot of problems, and let's take a look at what they did last year in the film room. All right, entering the film room, I'm going to showcase kind of where this Houston Texans offensive line was, right? It wasn't good last season. You're going to see different players just lose immediately. CJ Stroud get under pressure, and also miscommunications to where they're not picking up stunts like they should, basically causing a play to fall out. On this play, you're going to see right over here, Jonathan Greenyard just absolutely blow this thing up right there. Right, he's won within 1 second of this play. CJ Stroud's within his drop, can't go through his progression, and he goes down for a sack. There's far too many plays like this on tape where CJ Stroud has a two-step drop right there. There's a guy in his face, and he has nothing to do with the ball, and that's going to cause any sort of offense, any sort of quarterback to stall out. This play right here is a great example of the stunt problems they had. You're going to see 3 defenders lined up on here for, 3 linemen are going to count. The center is going to have to turn his head to the left side to pick this guy up. Meanwhile, the other side, the tackle, has to protect that way. Right, linebacker is going to have this gap responsibility, so this guy's going to kind of monitor the situation, see what happens. Watch what happens here after the defender's slant. You get to slant to the left, you get a loop around, and it's an easy sack. Simple miscommunication problem from the Texans' offensive line that happened so many times last year, right? It starts with the center, and it kind of goes from that, right? You obviously have to have the center account for pressure when you have too many defenders a certain way. Like this side, you see the left, even when they slant, right? You're going to see right there, he slants to the opposite A-gap, right? This is good right here, right? The right guard is supposed to pass this off to the center, right? The center carries, and the right guard is never able to pick up the loop from DeForest Buckner over here. So you have 3 guys accounted for 2 guys in a pretty simple stunt that should be picked up by a majority of NFL offensive linemen. But the Texans don't communicate well, and it causes a big-time sack and a loss for this team against a division opponent. And that's the Houston Texans offensive line summed up for y'all. I didn't mean to bring up some PTSD moments from the Houston Texans 2024 season, but that's the reality of the situation. The offensive line was absolutely abysmal last year, and it prevented them from getting going. I know I talked about injuries as well. The receiver injuries didn't help, and this team needed to address those this offseason. In terms of free agency, they went out and tried to get as many different pieces to add in the offensive line, but they kicked off free agency with a big trade of their cornerstone left tackle, Laramie Tunsil, who struggled with penalties and, just hasn't necessarily lived up to his massive contract. I think Tunsil's a above average tackle still in this league. He's a great pass blocker. Run blocking isn't there, but the penalties are a frustrating part. And the Texans felt that they needed to move him in order to completely reshift their offensive line. They went through and replaced him with Cam Robinson at the left tackle position. They had a different mix of guards. Laken Tomlinson looks like he's going to be projected to be the starter at left guard for them. And then in the draft, they go get Ariante Irsay from Minnesota to go play the other tackle position. So you kind of have that makeshift group of an offensive line that they completely shifted. In terms of their receiver position in the draft, they decided, you know what, let's go get it younger. In free agency, they go Christian Kirk to try to play in the slot. They already have Xavier Hutchinson, who looks like he's supposed to be the starter for now, but you have Jaden Higgins, who they got from Iowa State. And then they got his teammate Jalen Noel from Iowa State as well. Both players are incredibly talented and can be very big contributors for this Houston Texans team in 2025. Both of them are 1,000-yard receivers. Jaden Higgins is a guy that I really like. One of the highest, he was the highest PFF graded receiver coming out of college, but his yards per route run were strong, has a good projectable profile opposite of Nico Collins that will help. Those type of depth moves at the receiver in the offensive line position prevent them from getting in a situation where they were last year, where it was just a complete disaster at times. And you pair that with CJ Stroud, that gives me a little bit more confidence that they have more stability there than what they had. Sure, they might not have the franchise left tackle cornerstone on that side of the ball, but they at least have an offensive line that has more depth to it this year, won't necessarily be so volatile on a weekly basis. And then the receiver room injuries, I know we're going to be missing Tank Dell, but they have a deeper receiver room than last year that puts them in a better spot right now. Then before we head to the defensive side of the ball, we have to talk about their running back rooms. And this is one of the, concerning parts. I know the offensive line doesn't look great, but the running back room I'm concerned about. Joe Mixon has a foot injury. The timetable hasn't been confirmed with that, and it looks like it's going to be a serious injury that could cause him to potentially miss the entire season. They bring in Nick Chubb, which should help. Dameon Pierce is still there. You add in Woody Marks and Dare Ogunbowale as the other backs in that offense, and it's kind of a group of guys that haven't really been successful. And if the Houston Texans want the offensive line to be successful this year, they're going to have a running game that, moves the sticks, keeps teams from just teeing off and rushing the passer. And that's a big thing. I think Nick Chubb was a really, really good player. I'm not sure what he's going to look like after all the injuries now. It looks like he's going to play a majority of snaps. He played 79% of snaps for the first team in the second preseason game. So I think it's going to be Chubb and then a mix of guys in on third down, and Dameon Pierce probably is the next guy in. But the backfield can't be a backfield that averages over 4.5 yards per carry. I am worried that teams could just tee off on this offense and just pass rush for ease. Defensively, though, that's where my concerns with this team stop right away. The defense is in such a good spot right now. The Jimmy Ward loss does hurt. Ward has some legal issues out the field. He's not there right now. It looks like he's going to miss probably the season with what he has going on right now. But cornerback position, you get, Derek Stingley Jr., who's one of the best young corners in the NFL, if not the best corner in the NFL. You had Chauncey Gardner-Johnson in that secondary at safety, which helps. Honestly, they would have had a great tandem between Ward and Gardner-Johnson back there, but not going to happen. But you have a great cornerback. You have a good secondary in general in there. The edge rushers, Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter might be one of the best duos, if not the best duo in the NFL. You have an elite secondary paired with an elite pass rush. That always is going to put yourself in a good position to be successful on the defensive side of the ball. And that's what we saw in the postseason. The Philadelphia Eagles were able to go to a Super Bowl behind a strong secondary and elite pass rush. And you didn't necessarily have to have a world-beating offense on the offensive side of the ball. If the Houston Texans defense plays like they did last year and their offensive line slightly improves, their receivers stay healthy throughout the year, this is a team that realistically could win 12 games this season. Let's take a look at their schedule heading into 2025. So after the final preseason game against the Lions tomorrow, the Texans open up the season with a great game against the Rams on Sunday. That is going to be a great litmus test for this team against the Rams team that has Super Bowl aspirations with some of the moves they've made. Their schedule to open up the season is pretty tough outside of their own division. You have the Jaguars and Titans mixed in the first 5 weeks, but you also have the Bucs and the Ravens. Both were playoff teams last year, and we know how good Baltimore has been over the past few seasons, and the kind of a brewing rivalry between these two teams with what they've done and meeting up recently. I think that'll be a good test for them to see where they are. The offensive line is facing a good pass rush, and the Rams and the Ravens should be a good test. And then that bye week in week 6 is early. Does not necessarily help them much, but after that, they're going to have a gauntlet of games coming up. You get the Seahawks should be tough this year. The 49ers will be much better. The Broncos are one of the most improved teams in the NFL on the offensive side of the ball. Then you get your cakewalk games with the Jaguars and Titans, but division games are never easy. Then you go Buffalo, Indianapolis, Kansas City, Arizona, Las Vegas, the Los Angeles Chargers, and then the Indianapolis Colts. The Texans got a brutally tough schedule, but towards the end of the year, it should ease up to where if this team is in a interesting position to where, they could clinch a 2 seed or a 3 seed, having the Cardinals, Raiders, Chargers, and Colts to close the season is much better than having, for example, the Chiefs, Ravens, and Rams to close out a season at the end of their schedule. Their schedule, this is what happens when you're a first-place team and you get the AFC West this year. You're going to play some tough opponents. Luckily for them, I think some of the NFC West teams could be a little bit inflated, but the Rams and then the 49ers are going to be tough matchups for this team, and it's going to put to a test all of the moves this team made in the offseason. Ultimately, though, guys, the Houston Texans are in a different position than they were in 2024. They went out and addressed their offensive line issues by adding depth to the position and adding some younger pieces that should fit better for their scheme. At the wide receiver position, they went out and did the similar thing. They added depth and younger upside players that should allow them to stay healthy and consistent on that side of the ball. I'm concerned about their running game, but I think that the overall consistency and continuity of this deeper Houston Texans offense should help them take a step forward from a down 2024 season. This team will still be carried from their defense, as we know that they have a top 5 unit in the NFL, paired with 2 of the best edge rushers in the NFL and an elite secondary. They are going to be just fine on that side of the ball. If the offense can take a step forward, the Houston Texans have a legit chance of making noise in the playoffs this year. Let me know down in the comment section below what you think of this Houston Texans team. Hit that subscribe button for more Blitz Sports Media content, and I will catch you guys next time.